Hey.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
Hello. Hey, Matt. How was the session? I missed it, although I wanted to make it.
To be honest, it was super interesting. Like, I'm not cat native or coder myself, but the graphs, etc., were like very interesting. Like, telling too much about like how can these kind of agent-based modeling will be used for products. So I really liked it. I will upload YouTube video so
Cool.
you can watch it.
Perfect.
Yes, it was in that session. I was wondering because I am seeing some challenges in the time-based scenarios. Because if we have like different agents, like zero resistance, the same things that happen in Gitcoin, maybe that we maybe you need to explore a little bit more. Like having these scenarios time-based, because if there are like agents that act as owners and founders at the same time, maybe I see like this is the main point that you will be have to exploring with the models, like how they will behave if different founders come in different moments of time, and you have like three researchers that come in a different epoch time. How this will behave? The group will be the same, like a staking in time, and you will have the same percentage growing as you show in the right matrix, or it will behave differently because it can change quite a lot if you have different agents coming at different times and you will have the same stakes. That's what I was wondering when you were showing the slides. I know it merits research, but it was my thinking.
Cool. So it was more than the version that we saw, right? More insight. Definitely need to catch up on it.
Yeah, and I just wanna announce our proposal has passed. I just learned today.
Yes. I also learned it from Nick.
I'm so happy.
You made it. So about that, congrats. Yes, library is happening. So we need to document. we need to document the process. It's super cool how we did it, literally. And in a sense, just to recap, like we did all the things that need to be done, but in a quite, again, improvised manner. Like getting the proposal through is one thing, but then the first thing I realized, like, oh, no one knows about this proposal. So this right. So this communication is really important, and people, in it oftentimes just forget it.
I always chill it.
And
like every.
You did. Thanks.
Like in for example, like in a good way, in an organic way. For example, in the orientation calls when they're explaining all the working groups and they go through Omega, they ask me to explain Omega, and I explain what Omega is about, and I take the opportunity to tell them that we have currently two initiatives, which are like the research that we're doing, the peer group research that we're doing around ethics, and also the consensus already. And then I invite people, if they deem themselves subject matter experts, to contribute in one of the pedals, etc. So, I mean, intuition told me maybe they're like, am I a subject matter expert? Like, they have like this, what's it called? Like, imposter bias, I think it's called. I feel like being a subject matter expert in something, it's somewhat arbitrary. Like if you've dedicated like 10 hours in something, like you're already more adept than like I think 90 something % of people out there. But then 10 hours, is that really? So I feel like yeah, I don't know, for now, yeah, just trying to find people who have more initiative maybe than self-awareness, and who would like to start filling up the pedals with some information. I know Nick and I are working on the psychology decision science. We have like a Deph Psychology handbook that is pretty meta. It takes into account the biological aspects of our being, and then also the psychological ones, sort of like the mind and the subconscious mind, and the anima, the animus, the shadow, and then also like the social aspects of like a community, nation state, continent. Like it goes into. I can show later on if there's time for that, but and then also one about meta thinking, which is about decision making. I feel like the most relevant topics that we can start curating for right now are the ones who are going to affect us directly, and I feel like sometimes we don't have. This is something that I can sense from being at conversations that they're trying to do sense making around like a proposal, or if they want to, for example, right now for liquidity management during the Stewards Council last week, I didn't feel they had the proper criteria to judge if it would be a good idea to use the funds from the common pool, for example, to put into water, which is a token that helps with liquidity, but then also there's a risk if water fails, then we're tied to it. So, and so this book, like Meta Thinking, it deals about, okay, depending on the problem at hand or the issue at hand, like which type of thinking, sort of like Daniel Kahneman's book, like there's fast thinking, slow thinking. This book goes over different types of thinking, and depending on the issue you have at hand, you ought to be able to take your thinking toolbox and choose the right thinking tools that you need to that issue. And so, I mean, for now, those are like the two pieces of the two books, that we're sort of like thinking about. But I'm glad to.
Yeah. What is the second one? I'm just documenting. Which is the second one? Meta thinking and?
The second one, it's actually it's called Discover Your Personal Myth Handbook. I'll share the screen. I don't want to take more time off of this, but I do feel
sorry, but I think it's worth it just to show it. Because
so
we are basically also going into the topic, but maybe we then just make a round. Like it's really about the TE Consilience library that went through, and it's really about figuring out like how are we part of it, how are we participating, how are we contributing to it, and so on. So it's actually pretty good to open it up like this. Manu, please share.
Yeah. So it's a book by I guess I'm showing here like what I was thinking about, like the different divisions, the biophysical, the psychological, and the socio-environmental one. I think that's really helpful, like understanding the different levels. I think Durgas would love that.
Yeah.
But it is a handbook from Institute for Psychosystems Analysis, and it is like a Deph Psychology. It takes into account like the Jungian, the Freudian, and I think this Adler. And I mean, it's 458 pages. The people who wrote it are credited, experts in their own merit. And I guess the four pillars are dialectical syncretism, humanistic medicine, Jungian psychodynamics, and general system theory. I know. I mean, it's a mouthful. It's just a lot of information, but it's what I've been saying over and over again. Like we need to take into account that we are beings that sometimes, more often than not, we haven't read the own manual for our own like brain, and we have bugs. Like our brain have bugs, which I always like to. Maybe I've said it before. Always like to equate like the biases that we have with bugs, like in software. Except that in software you can just patch a bug and that's it. Within our brain, we need to develop habits and like structures and systems for us to make those types of behaviors that are subconscious, make them explicit and address them. So I found that Deph Psychology Handbook and the Meta Thinking book to be addressing that issue. And with that, I'll pass it back to you. We'll stop talking.
So super cool. Can I just take on so to set the stage, or because I think I'm seeing a couple of things are happening. Number one is also something that Letty has captured, like how is all of our activities actually now we're seeing how they could feed each other with information, insights, and so on, and then become something useful and practical for the token engineering community with respect to token engineering ethics. When it comes to this library, for example, now on the agenda, basically we're like, what is this library for each one of us, and how can we contribute? How do we want to support it? How are we going to be the stewards of it, right? And when you just open up now, Manu, with saying how to contribute, right? So you're taking this one contribution, psychology, decision science, a petal, where you think, and I second you on multiple levels. Basically, this is the core of it, or this is something that if you look around, every DAO and every participant in a DAO is grappling with, deciding where to contribute, how to contribute, because that decision only you can make. And that comes back to the autonomy part, that comes back to your contribution, Manu, to token engineering ethics principles or ethical principles about informed participation. So literally from your opening, I see how this one area that you picked collaboratively with Nick, number one, it satisfies basically the one criteria that we came up with, in a sense, to say, okay, if it is one petal, at least multiple people looking at this petal and feeding it collectively. And then also connecting to multiple domains or sourcing it from a transdisciplinary source or references from transdisciplinary sources. So these are a couple of criteria where I see like the work on the library, contributing to the library, can feed many, many other initiatives and can become also useful to current activities in token engineering commons, but also in the bigger token ecosystems. Because these are the things, we're not the only ones grappling with these topics. So that kind of captures what I'm hoping to get with and through this library. And the technical part, also over the weekend or on Friday also, I shared this collective curation template. I don't know if you had a look at it, Manu, and Nick and others, but that would be a template if you can use this to capture your insight, even if it's just initial insights, why you chose that book. Maybe that's another criteria that is coming.
I think actually after this call, Nick and I have like a 1 hour call where we're going to we're going to fill the curation template. So we're doing that.
Perfect. And one other info. I don't know how what were the votes and so on, but I know that Trent was a mega supporter. And I don't know if Sargam also supported, but one thing was I took,
They both did, and maybe maybe we could approach them. And I mean, I know they're incredibly busy, but perhaps even a symbolic contribution. It doesn't have to be a book, although they could probably
already curating. They are already creating.
Okay, they probably just
That's
like
what I wanted to say.
Like synthesize a book out of the many that they've read, and that they use constantly for when they are commissioned. Model.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So what happened was the following. I had difficulties approaching them, in a sense. I know everyone is super hyper busy, literally, like beyond belief. It's incredible. It's actually superhuman or non-human, like the type of throughput that goes through many, Zargam trend are just examples. I think many of the people who are active and actively trying to shape this emerging field are like beyond belief, stretched beyond belief. And it's such an amazing, again, superhuman contribution. And we see how hard it can be, right? And what they literally, I needed all of this input from all of you just to see and how to synthesize it. And when I had this template, I just put things together that you guys, especially Nick and Dave, for example, with this conciliant space. I just put this together, and that was for me the point where I said, okay, this is now enough to actually, go bother the people that who put this, who rolled the stone, right? And at the same time, I know that they care about the space. They're invested in the space, like very much, obviously, right? And the wonderful thing was really the immediate response was, yes, great initiative. We'll support it, and I'm going to take time this weekend and do it. And literally, Dagam already started. I think I'm looking for a template. And trend, and their contributions are coming, and they have feedback, for example, right? And my thinking was, they contribute because they care about exactly like these type of collective contributions happening, knowledge sharing happening. That's the main reason why token engineering came to be this field that it is. And my thinking was then, because I tried to ignite the same thing in Omega or within us, and even I failed in a sense to make a contribution. So the one learning I have is like being vested in this knowledge sharing is something that is either intrinsically motivated, and then it really, number one, you already have so much to share and it happens and you like that. Number two is like you, Manu, Nick, you're saying this is important for me personally. I see it as being important for the community. I see it's a topic that goes around. That's why I'm investing time. But everyone else, in a sense, like everyone else really needs to juggle and needs to prioritize all the time. And that's just one aspect I wanted to share is how do we incentivize and enable people's contributions into it. Really, I think that's the biggest effort that we.
I have an idea.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I volunteered to be a host on TE Academy, one of their sessions from where they currently have. I think it's going to be TE 360, I'm not sure like what program I'm in, but I'm going to be hosting a session where it's more like I'm going to be facilitating a discussion more than presenting, and it would perhaps be a good idea. And maybe you're closer to Angela than I am, Sebnem, to like have the hosts that are going to be presenting or facilitating a discussion, have them contribute something to the library as part of their and again, it's be the voluntary. In the end, they are very mindful about not demanding too much time of their host. Like it is like a 1 hour weekly time commit. And so I think perhaps like approaching TE Academy, Angela, and asking them, hey, like the people who are going to be hosting these discussions or facilitating them,
gotcha.
perhaps they are subject matter experts in one of the pedals, and if so, they want to contribute. Then I mean, we already have funding for it, so perhaps we could some fee structure for them to get some incentive on contributing something to the library, and it would bring us closer together to the academy. Could be like a partnership type of thing. So that's just an idea.
I think, I'll take this, and I think that could work in a sense like, hey, you're currently guiding people through, and you're telling them to read these selected works. Do you want to have a TE Academy 360 collective curation, and basically have Angela share that template with the host? That's a great idea. Thank you. Okay. So basically, again, I think marketing outreach is this organic thing, right? These are great ideas. I'm just noting them.
I can also, I'm working on, I mean, it's just, I guess, things that I'm already doing that I can introduce the consilience to the current workflow that I'm already doing. But I'm going to be sending a short email, and then at the end of the month, a newsletter through HubSpot. And I could invite people through it to become contributors to curators of the library. So that was already, I already thought about that, but
second iteration, I would say. Do you know why? Because number one, let's get the close ones. We know that there is already like TE Academy 360 curation should be just happening, like because it's already coming together. But then the other thing is, now we have these templates, and we should be feeding them into the Notion prototype, right? So that basically people know how is their curation looks like, and we get a feeling of, okay, how are we going to present those? Maybe there are different media, and Nick had also mentioned that, and so on. And then basically really figure out, and maybe next step is to have this blast. Maybe, I don't know, we need to control the blast reuse, but maybe it won't be overrun. But if it is, for example, what is the process between this prototype in Notion and the templates? It's really just paper prototype and the Notion prototype. And what is the process to actually get those curations into the library? That is a lot of manual work. But we need to define that process and the tasks. And
yes, because that would be like phase 2 of the library. If you remember, we guys made this phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So we are just cover the phase 1 with this fantastic template, which I thank Susie for making, which is great. And I think this is like something coming together for the supporters to come in and say, okay, you have this structure, and we have this Notion prototype. And as Manu, you're saying, like having this announcement for the people who are coming both to the T360 and later on for the T fundamentals. So we maybe wait for the initial curators, like our seed curations in the template, and then we decide on the best, Solstice is saying, the best way to put that into the library, which can be like a different version for version 2. And then we come to this phase 2, and which comes together with the people that are coming to Omega, to the tech, and maybe to the programs, and maybe different for our phase 2, which we really don't know which is coming about in this version. How do you
so I'm also noting
like the marketing
that we learn. Go ahead, please. Sorry.
No. Like this announcement comes in phase 2 because we are doing this in still, but it's something to wrap our heads around.
Yeah. Or second iteration. I mean, when we have the seed creation and we port them to Notion, we learn the process, like what is it that we need to do, of populating, but that will also give us ideas of incentive schemes, like.
Because I'm thinking if we use a template, for example, we can duplicate that, and we need to know where people are curating those. So maybe in the Notion, we still need a block which says, put your templates here, and we can just gather them in the Notion or in our Discord. I don't know where, but we need like this link to the templates people are curating.
And just an idea, these curations can be also win-win. For example, a TE Academy 360 curation is actually a
big
a nice way. Exactly. So we can think about those incentives that are happening, and that brings me to the value flows that we can actually do for the library as well. And then if we have something that can, capture the traction and handle the traction, and we see there is traction, then we definitely move to phase 2 for sure. Because when we see it is really useful and happening. So for this usefulness, who else wants to share their vision? Like, what else other than the process of getting things done? What will be the experience of using it? Who wants to share?
I think Mert unmuted, but I also like to hear from. I had a talk with Deph, and he and I talked about how we can use art to evangelize about social engineering without going too much into the technical aspect, but going into the emotional aspect, like romanticizing the incentive alignment and what that entails, and what that means for coordinating around solving major structural problems. So I feel art is a really good medium that Omega is the only working group that is sort of like within the scope of maybe trying artistic endeavors. So Mert wanted to say something, but then I'd like to hear from Deph if he has some ideas about it and what we can do with it.
I want to say 2 points. Thank you so much for Manu and everyone for their beautiful talks. So what I envision this library as, like, I don't know how exactly now, but I envision somewhere where I can go and surf around without just the idea of consuming knowledge. So I like the idea should, I believe, something different than a Git book that has all the documentations in. But you can go maybe, as Nick articulated, join a learning club, like watching a video in it or whatever. But the idea is that it should be like a real university library that you can go and hang out for just having an experience. For example, when I go to a new city, I really like to go to the best library of that city, see how those students doing, like the new books that is around. So I mean, I think it would be super good to think this as like a living experience when you go in there. It's like a playing, like gamification of library, let's some sort of. So as so we can incorporate art in it and learning groups, or like how to hire an engineer, or like even maybe little events specifically for within our library. So this will be very cool. Maybe specific book club for it. Exact like I'm
reading.
ideas.
Yeah.
So, but I think this should, at least the core idea could be this. I would really love to have this kind of space in token engineering. So the other thing I want to ask, how would you guys feel about applying for Gitcoin grant for Omega Library?
Who takes it on? So I'm always for Gitcoin grants. It's really good. It's a great community, so it makes sense, definitely.
So we have 15 days actually.
Oh, from now on, you mean?
Yeah, but we have proposal. We have lots of ideas. We can just copy paste and shape it and make it a little bit beautifuler and post it. And I will or Manu will talk with comms people whether it's appropriate to market, etc. I think it will be super good. What do you guys think, like in general?
Maybe on the first thing for the Gitcoin grant, again, I don't have experience with Gitcoin, but it sounds like a very good organization, and it should be possible to take 14 days to come up with a proposal. I would totally go for this. Then 3 other things on the long run, how I could contribute to the consilience and how it could actually connect with transdisciplinary.art, which is kind of like a project I'm working on. And there, I think on the long run, it would make sense also considering the roadmap of Res Gauche, work with like transdisciplinary.art. But at this moment, that's kind of a thing that is really in a very, I mean, this project is not really ready yet to kind of I mean, like all the material there is now just me reading audiobooks, so that's kind of what it is now. There's a lot of research there, and I think in the long run that would be interesting to see like how it could. On the long run, the idea there is to create a foundation. It would be kind of the foundational form, which then connects to Res Gauche. But that's kind of now I'm talking about like 2025 and things. And then on the mid
really good. Long-term thinking, that's what we want to incentivize.
Yeah, like I try to like to occupy myself in time. On the mid-long term, I'm thinking there about how to I'm talking about the next 2 weeks. No, sorry, that's a short term. Like in the next month or something is I was just talking with someone, Sarah, she's one with motion now. I'll try to make it concise. Like the second thing is like with Motion DAO, I'm working on a wildcard residency project where I'm receiving a bit of funds from the Motion DAO through the NEAR protocol, which allows for like short time residencies in the gallery space. Also kind of connecting to Motion DAO members. What I'm doing there now, I'm kind of shortlisting through our network 500 artists that I'm connecting and inviting to be part of this kind of Web3 experience and connecting them with technology that I really, I mean, like I just talked with Sarah now, like explaining her how to use Mintbase. And I showed her Discord. She's like, no, I don't like this kind of interfaces. I mean, it's persons with a lot of artistic knowledge, but with not really an interest to kind of like work remotely. So there I see kind of potential in the sense that she's immediately like referring, yeah, I know this thing. When I showed her like the petals of the flower, she's like, yeah, but art is missing there, so why isn't there art in paper?
I think you should invite her maybe to our Omega Talks, because I see this happening in a lot of the space, like people coming up with really great ideas which are a little bit more artistically related, as Jean showed us here, and then you lose your incentives, right? Because you say, okay, this is the token engineers and they are working these protocols, this is NEAR, this is Balancer, and you lose your, I don't know, your artistic flame. So I really like this kind of people coming to maybe Omega. I don't know, invite them to our talks, which are a little bit more productive in this sense, and they can maybe just feel a little bit more warmer here. So yeah, I could be up relating to the Gitcoin. I'm up for this as well. I have not been using these kind of incentives to incentivize myself, but I see this like very organically because our proposals are coming together with the people that are working in things that are quite related. So if we can just grow this in this organic way, I think it's like beneficial for everyone here.
Yeah. And I wanted to add that the art is the the soil.
At least to come back to that.
Yeah, that's that's what has came or has been coming out. The last time we talked about how this library is multimedia, the whole experience of it, and maybe Steph, we could this residency program, maybe we could put a challenge in there saying this is the living library we're putting together, and maybe I don't know when it, but if we have put the content together at the very least, or the prototype is there, and we have clearly identified what is the value flows, who are the actors, what are their incentives, which are the intrinsic ones that you can capture through these interactions, and the media and so on, and or the experience of it, and the extrinsic one like the token types, etc. But I could imagine that might be an interesting exchange through this residency.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. But what I'm talking and dealing with here in Brussels is persons with like zero knowledge, also vocabulary wise. My community development work is really about translating, putting it in a as a non-technical format as possible. So I also need to think about how to actually set it up that it's always between human beings. Like that's kind of like what is a requirement, and I think that's also how I am trying to create some other value through this kind of technology. So that's a lot what Rasgosh is about. This is for sure, like I can just add this to the workflow of what I'm already doing to talk about the library that is part of the onboarding meetings, and that it's kind of an open invitation to take part also in the consilience or to learn about what's going on. Then on the really short term, to kind of finish the three things that I had to say was I thought about like if there's gonna be like another grant application, maybe I can just kind of work on something called like a Consilience Library version 090210 or something like very simple that shows a library not in a Notion form but with a bit like a different graphic. Yeah, just a kind of like example thing that if we're applying for another grant that it has another iteration. So there it would be nice to take some input from Mert also about how he sees this kind of so this I can do in the next 2 weeks just to build something and then share it with you that it's kind of a login that you can log into yourselves. And
Cool. Wow, could you do that? Like the web interface?
Build it on StackBit and I'll just kind of post it. Next week I have a French class test and then it needs to be before the deadline of the Gitcoin grants because then it should appear that it's kind of a nice presentation and not just a Notion page. That's kind of like
the Gitcoin grant is just it has already started 9th of March and it goes until the 24th.
Yeah, Marlon is also kind of trying to apply, so I'm also sending him info about like the Resghost thing. But what I can do basically is to create a kind of template that I just copy from the structure from the Notion. Because from my sense, like from my own sense of like pride, I find like my little drawings and pictures there, I think they should be presented somewhere else than on this Notion because I see them as a kind of background.
Cool.
So I just want to see how this looks like. And
there we go. Pure intrinsic motivation. That's
so
cool. No, perfect.
It's like imagine if you have like this flower and you can hover, and each of these flowers, you can hover over it, and you can click on it, and then it expands into a whole, like, organically into a whole other interface, and it takes you where you, with a cool animation, where you want to go. Like stuff like that is possible only through that, outside of an LCD, basically, with some design.
Yeah, I see what you
that's
mean.
totally possible.
That's
but I would like us to actually get the need for it. Like, we can come up with really cool, how do you call it, navigation and so on and so forth. But we should really also take like every bit of data that we're getting from the how people use the template or did not, and why, and so on. And then also the consilient space. I think it's really important. It really helps us focus on, hey, this is about the transdisciplinarity, not just one area or one petal. It's if then you click on a petal and you see how many curations in that petal already linked to other petals and stuff like this. But we can take this data from what is already happening. I think there is some input, but I would also love for us, especially if it's time limit or so, Steph, I don't know, but actually get some potential users in a sense, like and I'm looking, you don't see it, but I'm looking to Nick whether she's going to share a bit, because you were the one who had most or who pushes a lot, and I value that a lot. Like who is going to use it, like the people coming new into the space, dropping onto this server or into token engineering. They feel somewhere calling somewhere, but they don't know how to move through, and we don't want them to just drop into rabbit holes, but how are they going to experience this information space, if you will. And the Bear 100 would be also great to have just whatever you would have in mind as someone who recently joined, but maybe you can already relate to this library.
Also,
Nick, can you share?
I think Bear was just about to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I think for me, it's just really quick for what I have to say. I still feel that I'm like really brand new into all of this. Like I've been here for a week. So, I have sometimes this feeling that I don't have things to contribute yet. I feel like that wouldn't be correct on my side because, like, for example, that's what I'm here today, like listening to all of you talk and have all of these ideas that sometimes I don't quite understand, exactly what you mean. But, the big picture, that's what I see, and that's what I could tell you a little bit about, about this idea of what I understand that it means having a library that, for what I understand, it's gonna focus on token engineering. That is like a brand new subject. And for what I see, it's kind of like, I hope no one here is an engineer, but at least for me, engineering field, it's kind of dry, it's kind of hard to navigate, no matter what kind of engineering it is. But with all the innovation that is happening here, I think it's a really good opportunity, and with the creation of this library, to give it a shift, to try to make it a little bit more fun, a little bit more friendly to all kinds of people that even though you've never heard the word talking before, like you can approach this and you can talk to people, and like, what is his name? Sorry. What Steph was saying about, making art involved. I think art is a really universal language so that everyone can relate to. And also what Mert was saying about trying to make it this place the closest to what real libraries are. Real libraries, for what I see, are like places where people gather and where people learn from different things. And the most interesting libraries for me are not just the ones that are full of books, but nowadays you can go into a library and you can watch videos, you can play video games, right? What he said about gamification, I think that's super interesting. How could we make token engineering into some kind of game in order to learn it, something like that. So I think there's a lot of room for innovation, a lot of room for trying new things, and yeah, just try to make that differentiation with other libraries. For example, like this week, I never heard about this forum. It's called the Smart Contract Research Forum, and I wrote an article for it because someone asked me to. And when I was there in the website, it's kind of cool because they talk about different topics and everything related with smart contracts, right? So I thought about, well, I guess it's kind of what they want to do with a Consilience library. But the website, it's just white, it's like a blank page. So how could we change that? How could we make that more approachable? Yeah. And yeah, that's basically so far what I've seen, and just trying to learn more, trying to absorb more. Sorry, and yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, man, I know what you mean. I'm in smart contract research forum, and yeah, it's just it's like, yeah, the forum is very bland. The content is really good, and the interactions are cool.
Correct. Yeah. It was cool. For example, sorry, that me, as I wrote a piece about DAOs. Like, I don't know much about DAOs, but I wrote it based on what I know, and I gave it like my own style and my own, like my own expression, And I think that was cool to be able to express that. Sorry?
You published it in the forums, or is it an
Yeah.
external article? Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Which one is it?
It's called, I don't even remember it. It was the takeaways of presentation that happened in the Taoist Mexico.
Okay.
So I just wrote like my main takeaways from that. It was funny because I was able to attend to this presentation. They gave me a ticket in exchange if I could write a piece about any of the presentations that I liked. So it was kind of a cool exchange that we did. And I just picked one of the presentations. I did it about Ethic Hub. I don't know if you guys heard about it.
Yeah.
So I did it about them, and it was cool because it led me into this website that it's interesting, that it has a lot of potential, but maybe it has a lot of things to be improved at. Like also what you were saying. Sorry, what's your name? Poof, I think. Unipoof, yeah.
Yeah.
This idea of the flower expanding, and maybe it seems like a not that important thing, but I think it's probably most of the important things, because it's like the gate of access, like that's the main point where people are gonna access and their first touch point on what token engineering is, right? So if it's dry, if it's white, if it's blank, if it's boring, most of people maybe are gonna leave, right? So you want to make it fun.
Yeah,
that always reminds me of Manu saying, "Oh, I have an idea how to make ethics sexy."
Yeah, exactly. That's so cool.
Yeah, we need more sexy in this field.
Okay. But yeah. I just yeah, but definitely, like, how are we going to, if you want, if it's the engagement, right? How do we get that part right? Not just what we value and the basics and so on, but also this engagement part. And it definitely takes really new perspectives and also other skill set than those maybe who could put great curations in the library are not the ones who are best at thinking or coming up with imagination, how it should feel to browse that library. So thank you for sharing. And Unipath, I cut you. I'm sorry. Please.
Yeah, I think like I don't know if it is relevant to this state or maybe the next one, but in the grants in the PTs but generally in the grant proposals, some of the money can go to UI design and to UX research. And this could feed back to the project and make it more, this is the sexiness part of it. And it would also make it seem like it is more of it acquires flesh and bones, something more expansive. So I think it's really nice that you are discussing and thinking about these things. It's very important.
And this whole learning experience, body system, etc., is also part of that UI and experience, right? The interface will be always digital first. Then how do you make real connections, like and where and so on? And actually, this isn't just the next step. I mean, now that the funds are there and we have more concrete ideas now coming up, or not just ideas, but also people actually seeing how they can contribute more clearly, we definitely also need some sort of I don't want to call it project management. I mean, we can still play with the working style or but we do need like a work flow for this library, figuring out how do we want to invest those first 15K. Not figuring out, I mean, we have a list of things that we did. I don't know if the experience, etc., was part of it, but that's another point. Maybe dedicate the next 6 minutes at the very least to that. Like, who's the operation team, if you will, like, yeah.
I can share what I've been working on.
Please, I've been waiting.
Sorry, I wanted to give space for everyone else to talk first. Okay, so I showed this briefly in the last call. So like I'm coming up with a way for us to kind of map out the current initiatives happening in Omega, and at the same time linking what motivates people intrinsically and what energizes them to the initiatives happening. And then from there we'll be able to see like, okay, so we're having a lot of connections in this specific part of this initiative, for example, and then we can see, okay, maybe we should invest more there if we want to reward the intrinsic motivation with some money, if that's something we wanted to explore. So I tested it with Mount. Well, I guess I should explain how it works first. So basically, what you do first is you fill out your information here. You talk about what motivates you to join with to interact with TEC and Omega, and then like what energizes you to experience, what drains you, what energizes you to do, and then what drains you to do. So I tested it with Manu. Oh, my bad. I told you I was going to go with the whole thing. Okay, so once you filled out the whole profile, you look at the initiatives that are currently happening. And sorry, I keep jumping around. I have a legend up here and instructions that make it so much easier. But so basically how it works is we have the initiative, and then there's like a brief description, the facilitators to reach out to. And then there's like sub-initiatives that people came up with on their own that they can just connect. If they have ideas that they want to start, they can connect it so everyone can see what people are doing. Or this is like established already, and this stuff is like what they came up with themselves. And then this is like what we know we need definitely. So for example, Unipop is saying we need UX designers and UX researchers. Maybe we should push that as a post-it to the library. And then we connect it via these arrows. You can kind of see what they mean, and then there's links. So now, now that you've filled out your profile, what you do is you go to the initiative, and then so you can read about it, check out the links relating to it. What you do is you look at the initiatives, and then you see like, oh, algebra of conscience. That sounds interesting to me because, like for example, for Manu, he loves philosophy and he wants to see if algebra of conscience applies to omega. So he wants to explore those things. So he connected it to that. So now we can see pursuing this, which helps this, energizes Mount Manu, which is amazing. Woo! We can do lots of things here too. Like we can even document. We can add like notes. For example, you can write like mark down notes on here. We can add to-do lists to the initiative, so we can see like pretty much everything that's going on. Initiative. So after testing with Mount Manu, I learned that maybe it would be good for people to drag notes instead of copying them, so that what we end up with is so whatever's left over in here, we can kind of see what, I guess, opportunities to energize people that aren't being used, because some of them are already being used for the project, but some are not being utilized. So we have opportunities to create more energizing opportunities, so we can have an abundance of energy within Omega. So maybe, for example, if like 90% of people in Omega like yoga, maybe we can create an initiative where someone does yoga sessions for us, so that as people we have more energy to express in Omega, right? And I also was thinking that maybe we can even make it more precise. So around each post-it note, maybe we have like circles around it. Let's say like 5 circles, and then depending on how energizing it is, like the closer it is to the post-it note, the more it energizes. So we can see then like the people it energizes and the level of energy it gives the people to interact with or work on the project. And well, those are just my ideas so far for this. After testing with
one thing,
Manu.
Super cool. Two things, like maybe one is more technical. The color coding you have already, right? Like what is the yellow, for example?
So yellow is like
self-initiated contribution. Perfect.
Yeah. So while they're filling out the profiles or whatever, and then they see the initiative and they see something, they have an idea. For example, Steph's idea. You can add it as a yellow thing. And then when others have been exposed to the idea, maybe you can change to purple. So for example, when it becomes like an actual thing that other people are working on as well.
Maybe second iteration, but I could see, for example, that we see from there whether it is, I think we will have pretty distinctive contribution items. Like a lot of the things that we do is actually picking up research. So it's really references that we flow through, and that those things directly, should be reused for populating libraries, for example. So that's something where it's how do you call it? That's how we mint time or tokens or what have you, in a sense that we can reuse one action and make it create value 2 or 3 times, if you will, like the multiplier. That just came to mind, seeing many of those self contributions. I'm imagining will be digging through references and research or some knowledge items, if you will, right? And that can directly go or populate with its context also the library. The second part, I would ask, from your experience, do you think people can roll with it, or is it helping to actually be facilitated in a sense, or be guided? Asking Manu, for example, could you have populated it yourself this much, or did it help to hear the questions of Nick? And
it definitely helped having Nick, just because I didn't know the process. I was discovering the process as you were guiding me through. Perhaps, like if like I feel if I knew the process beforehand, like I could help other people go through it. But if I had known the process beforehand, I feel like at this point, Nick is still sort of like creating it as it goes around. Sort of like I was a demo, so it's still sort of like it's still fresh and still creating as it goes. So later on, there could be an iteration where people do it themselves, but for now, I do feel it worth going it through Nick. Also, it's somewhat lengthy, so if we ask someone to do it and they realize that it takes like an hour, they might not do it. So
they'll drop out.
Okay,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll have to take breaks, I think, because it definitely requires a lot of like self-reflection. Because like perhaps maybe that's something you haven't thought about before. But it's like, oh, this is actually motivating or interesting. Another thing.
And for you, Nick, how is it for you? Like getting this information, moving people through. Does it give you insights about what to improve or how to describe it better? Like, will you gain?
Definitely. Yeah, even after just like Manu's session had so many notes. Like for example, like I added that idea of like being able to like measure depending on like how far away the post is, so that we can visually see right away like where the concentrations of energy produce.
Cool.
Product. Yeah.
So perfect.
Another thing that I've been exploring is like I still need to finish it, but maybe like as a group we can like define the problems. We can like do like a session, a facilitated session on like the problems that we're encountering with joining Omega, and then we can generate ideas. I have it set up so it depends on like how much time you have available. You can contribute anyway, and then from the problems that we came up with, we can like do idea generation. So instead of just like talk, well, not that it's not valuable to just talk about it in the call, but I think we can capture a lot more like ideas this way if we go through this process of like so for example I came up with this idea, and then so maybe someone else will comment like I don't understand, or like they have questions, or what about this problem like that I didn't think about. So in the next iteration of this idea, I can improve on that based on everyone else's comments. So then ideas don't just stay ideas; they continuously improve until they actually become like a clear project that someone can do, and they can map out the plan based on like just going through this process of like it's called Crazy Eights, where like the entire team just like goes through the process. But
yeah, we could have sessions dedicated on those, like if you feel like the one thing. So, but where it would be super useful and needed right away is the TE Consilience initiative, right? Can we go through that with the people who want to contribute, and have you really make, if you can make time, really one-on-ones with every contributor and collect that, and at the same time we gather basically all the information that we need, right? Who are the contributors, what do they want to contribute, how much time, and so on, and also which areas, so we know what's the team and how to what's the team, what are the, let me put it that way, simple in a way, like agreed upon tasks that we know how to do, and we know what will be the outcome and that it's needed, but then there are these more experimental ideas maybe and how to do those. If we can use this at the same time to actually capture the data on the organization of the TE Consilience initiative.
I think we can, yeah, because you can just like add them here. Let me see if you can. There's like widgets that you can do on Figma.
Right now, there's only the token engineering TE ethics initiatives, or both.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, there's also the Conciliums library, and then the onboarding as well.
Onboarding as well. Okay. So yeah, if we could focus on the library just in the coming areas, or if the people have time, or you have time, or if they get the hang of it, maybe they can complete it whole, or we can complete it in those sessions together. But it would be really cool to populate these. These are like dashboards, in a sense, and hopefully with the tooling that is maturing, we definitely will have these DAO dashboards, where you see the work streams, where you see the people, where you see like these green arrows. The language of this is wonderful, like what energizes me, and what drains energy. For example, there are things that I can do because I've been trained in them, or I made a living for the most part of my life doing those things, but they don't energize me at all. They their energy draws, but I can do it. So and if a community needs them and so on, I can do it, right? So that type of information is so valuable, and it's just the color coding, but the value of that information is immense, and I think we can definitely take it up in this working style research kind of that is very, very organic. I think that's going to be a self-starter, and then wrapping this whole up into this exactly like the value flows of it, and then literally coming up with how are we going to distribute the funds according to like who needs them most at the same time as well. Like that's another dimension we could add actually, and I would feel comfortable. We have such a small group in a sense but we can also discuss about these things, like how do we feel about sharing or gifting, if you will, or people, even if they do the task, if you will, who say, okay, currently I have thankfully good income coming in. I want to leave it in the pot, and others can take from it. So you have this multi-sig and so on. So this work we're doing here and the visualizations and so on help sort it, but that can become the input into we called it administrative work, but it's really this the value flows center, if you will. So that will come together, and that information, like how do we want to capture and share the value, that will go into, okay, how are we handling the process of requesting funds, distributing those funds, how are we accounting for being transparent about it, and where do people see those information. So this is fantastic to see, actually. Like literally this is a paper prototype, if you will, of a dashboard, right? Is that the dashboard that you've been dreaming of, or was it something else entirely?
This is like just part of the dashboard that I've been dreaming of.
So literally, there's this comic we had in the Sociocracy 3.0 example in the Miro board, in the sessions that we had. Literally, this situation has been described as a comic. Nick has been working on this inflatable bridge in her spare time, and that's literally something. If we can work it out, and if we can make it functional, and we have all these talent here that can actually make it into a web-based dashboard, this is going to be a pretty fantastic contribution to a token engineering commons, because literally everyone needs it. unless they're fine with picking up bounties, but actually want to have more more value or more information encoded into this infrastructures that we use, that make us thrive, right? Not just function. Super cool.
Exactly. So if anyone's interested in exploring that with me, especially Unipuff, by the way.
Oh yeah, of course. I'm glad to see him for that. And also, I wanted to say that if it is, if it takes the form that we are collectively visualizing to take here, it would not only be valuable for tech, but even for people outside who wish to know about the field but have no connection whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So this can be like bridge
to
the outside world.
Definitely, and you will realize, or you will see that this is token engineering gets at this coordination and resource allocation, the ancient question or challenge of civilizations. So literally, seriously, again, Manu has this other comic that he pulls up, about this dude sitting in front of a computer, and mom comes in and is like, come for dinner or something like that, and the guy says, I don't have time, Mom. I'm rescuing the world or something.
Oh yeah,
so,
I'm restructuring the financial economics of the world, something like that.
That's what token engineering is about. So, but I just wanted to say, like, it's wonderful to see this emerging, and how I started this. And if we can come up with the recipe of this, it's really cool. Number one, it shows, yes, people can coordinate and create value and produce useful, actually pretty amazing, useful things, but really through their ability to contribute and through their ability to actually grow through their contributions, right? I think none of us literally was comfortable enough starting this out, including myself. So I'm just so happy to have the opportunity to be part of this. Super cool. What would you need? Like, for example, next week, shall we just continue? Again, it would be great if we can make time for one-on-ones with Nick, actually put those very important information in post-it and color-coded arrows, but they're really, really valuable information. If you can, everyone take the time to do that. I know it's a hell of a coordination or scheduling. I don't know, Nick.
We'll figure it out.
If that's okay for you. And the other thing I want to ask Matt, also, like, maybe you want to give some updates also about the value flows through the Steward budgeting, for example. We have some incoming there, and now also how are we going to get the funds from the proposal? Like, what is the state and what do we need to do next